All right, how's it going, everybody? I'm joined by a very special guest today. We have Nightgrowler with us. How are you today?
Greetings, I'm fine. And how are you?
Doing very well. Thank you for asking. So, how long have you been practicing for?
Oh, let me see. It was for 4 years, I guess, from September 2019.
Okay, long enough. And what got you interested in the first place?
Funny thing, it were comic books.
Interesting, like Alan Moore and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
At that time, I was going through some kind of existential crisis because I had a good job. I had like everything was fine, but I felt empty inside. I felt that something is longing for meaning because I was drawing like stickers to the Telegram Messenger, and it was like a good job. It was interesting, but it felt not meaningful enough. So I was going through some kind of crisis, and works of Alan Moore were kind of an answer to that crisis, because uh, I was I was trying to examine what exactly makes a good work of art, what makes a masterpiece.
Sure.
How are we defining what works of art are more meaningful? And I was collecting comic books, I was collecting video games, and I was trying to find what exactly captures my soul when I am going through the story in some particular video game or a comic book or whatever other medium, or even a song, I don't know. And at one day, I've discovered that Moore, on his 14th birthday, said that he is a magician, and I was like, what does he mean? How is it possible? And I began to dig a bit, and I found his essay "Fossil Angels." Have you read it?
No, that's something I'm gonna have to look into, though.
That's wonderful text. I can say that my life is like, how does one say that? I'm sorry, in forward, I will make some pauses because I need to translate.
That's okay.
So that was a turning point in my life. Yes. Because that essay, it's pretty long text, but it can be reduced to one simple saying that art is magic and magic is art. And he is like, for first half of essay, he's basically kind of destroying many occult orders, which are just simply going with the rituals, like making a lot of ritualistic routine, and it's like a cosplay more than an actual magic workings, because many of these are stuck in some kind of nostalgic reconstructionism, and he is saying that there is an absence of spirit of magic, which was in times like of John Dee, or even earlier, when it was highly experimental and it was more alive. And this second half of essay, he's proposing that we can give back to magic its former meaning and its former status by converting our perception of magic as an art and to more intertwine the artistic component of magic with all occult phenomena. Because if you look at the art as a process, how can one define an inspiration not in magical terms? Because inspiration is very supernatural phenomena. It's you cannot understand it, you cannot explain it. It's very, very spiritual stuff. And when I read this, many things in my life, it was like a final piece of puzzle of what am I doing my whole life, because I'm drawing from my childhood, and I was trying to understand how to capture meaning in like geometry and in colors and in those things which we are calling images. And then I've read his wonderful work, Promethea. And it was a very beautiful introduction into what is possible to do with magic, because Promethea is both like a manual and an example of results of magic work, very tangible results, because he, in his interviews and some materials, he mentions that he obviously used magic to make Promethea. And have you read it?
I haven't. I have not. I'm not as familiar with his work as I should be for how much I respect him.
I highly recommend Promethea too, because it has, for example, it has a structure of Kabbalistic tree of life, because there are 32 issues corresponding to 10 Sephiroth and 22 paths. And the last issue has 32 pages, and last issue is like a microcosm of the macrocosm of the whole series.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Wow, what an artist.
That's tremendous work, because the whole story is about a girl named Sophie Banks.
Sophia.
Yeah. You can see all these little details which are combined in this beautiful work. So Sophie Banks, she is a student which is working on her educational project about the Promethea. Promethea is a fictional character in the world of this comic book. And she is like a character which pops up in different unconnected works of fiction. And she is writing about, she's writing an article about that character. So Sophie, she visits a woman which was the wife of last artist which worked with that character. And there, Sophie discovers that basically character isn't fictional and it's a real goddess, which is incarnating in muses or the artists which work with her. And she becomes new Promethea. And every time new Promethea is incarnated, she needs to remember herself. And there are other Prometheas which are explaining basics of occult matters to new Promethea. And they are first going through elements, then they are going through tarots, and tarot chapter is insane. There are 22 pages, and on each 24. On each page, there are 3 lines of narrative. There is a card, tarot card, which is explained by 2 serpents from Caduceus in rhymes. It's like a poetry.
Okay.
That's first line of narrative. Then there are anagrams of the word Promethea. Like on the page of lovers, there is written me atop her, which is contextually bound
Promethea.
to the
Wow.
yeah. And third line of narrative is an anecdote, which is told by different images of Aleister Crowley. And I don't know how he managed to write this.
He's a master.
It's just gorgeous. So, and after that chapter, Promethea goes into the world of Kabbalah, and she's traveling through 10 spheres. And there is so much of living material in that work, and it was basically best introduction I could ever have into whole Western occult tradition. So I can't recommend highly enough to read these 2 works of Alan Moore. These were my really turning points on my magical journey.
Okay, so what was the name of the first one again? I'm sorry.
Fossil Angels.
Okay. And I love how you mentioned, you said living material. I think that's such an astute way to put it. It captures so much of the essence.
Yeah, to be honest, my first real encounter of living deity was through this book. It was a moment when I was looking to the image of Hermes.
Oh.
And I felt his sight so deeply. I was looking at the page, but it was breathing, and it was staring at me right into my soul. And I was like, whoa, I can understand what he meant by art is magic and magic is art. If I can to draw anything which could stare on another person like this picture to me right now, I can do magic.
Well, yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I see what you're talking about when you're talking about a commonality of essences that sort of conglomerate into a masterpiece.
Yeah.
To me, that's the sign of at least a very high level adept, if not a master. When anything they put to paper, it downloads something into your consciousness that's so subtle that you almost can't even tell what it is, but you know, you can feel the gears turning in your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you had mentioned you were working on these stickers for Telegram. I've seen some of these stickers and they have so much character. Every single, they're basically representations of emotes and emojis, but every single one of them has so much quintessence and life, and it just captures the epitome of what the emoji is trying to say.
Thank you. That work was very interesting because I was, while I was drawing some particular characters, I was researching on their life, or if that's fictional character, what is his story about. And usually I was using themes which I personally love. So like I have drawn stickers about Hideo Kojima and his video games. I drew a sticker pack about Alan Moore and his characters. And
there's Diablo, Hellboy.
Yep.
There was one of my favorite ones is there's one of Dante, and he's
Yeah.
like raging, and he's got fire coming out of his eyes, and I just imagine he's raging at Pope Boniface and all of the tyranny of that era. And
Uh,
sorry to interrupt. I was just going to also say, it really shows how much research you did on each one of the characters.
Thank you. This particular sticker with Dante, he is depicted in the pose of the meme. What the hell?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And the fire is just
yeah.
bleeding out of his eyes.
With those stickers, I was training kind of intuitively in the matters of putting ideas into some kind of form. I was trying to play with correspondence between the character and his emotion, or like I have this sticker with Benjamin Franklin, which is drawn in like shut up and take my money from Futurama, and
Yeah.
he gives those banknotes on which he is depicted. So it's like mini fractal, I don't know.
Yeah, it's fractal. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's holding $100 bills,
Yep,
and
yep.
yeah. So it shows the whole microcosm, macrocosm thing.
Yeah, and when I discovered tarot, I was just it was blowing my mind, because tarot are like similar thing what I was doing with stickers, but X100, I guess. Like it was all about interchangeability of meanings and capturing the essence of some particular ideas and giving them that forms.
Yeah, you're actually working on your own tarot deck that I've had the pleasure and the privilege to see some of it, and I get chills when I look at them, because they're so alive. Your style is, it just has this life about it. I don't know if it's the way that you highlight and you contrast and complement your colors, but I mean, it's like I'm looking at a 3D image every single time I'm looking at one of your pieces of art. And that's one of the things that I love about it.
Thank you. Have you tried to draw by yourself a tarot deck?
I did almost like, it wasn't a stick figure, but it was basically one level up above stick figures. I would love to get further into it, but art isn't my strong suit. I'm a musician, so I considered writing tracks, music tracks based on the major arcana.
That's wonderful. I highly recommend to try to go through all the major arcana by your hand, no matter how complex and how beautiful image is. The very way of geometry and how it's communicating to you, just like you can draw even with stick figures, overall image of the major arcana, and you absolutely would need to draw corresponding Hebrew letters and those signs of astrological correspondence, because when I am drawing my own tarot, it's communicating with me through that geometry. I like very much one of the most striking episodes of that was when I was drawing the Emperor card, and I was like, oh, the Emperor has that scepter, and I would like to draw an Aries sign of the top of that scepter. And when I was drawing it, I am looking and I see clearly how the Aries sign geometry looks just like the fishing hook. And I was like, wow, Sadi is not the star. And for those who don't know, there is one of main differences of the Thoth tarot from which is my main source of inspiration. One of the main differences of the Thought Tarot to the, for example, Rider-Waite-Smith deck is that correspondence of the Hebrew letter of major arcana, star, and emperor are switched based on the revelation of the Crowley, which he got from the Book of the Law. And that moment when I drew that card by myself, I had very important for me personally synchronicity, which confirms that Tzaddi is not the star. Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, Zadi means fish hook in Hebrew. It represents a fish hook. So he had that sort of that moment of interloping. I love those moments of realization. It's like a cold bolt of lightning that just strikes you.
Yep. So I recommend to everyone who is learning tarot to grow, no matter how complex image is. Just like one moment when I began to finally making notes in my regular magic journal. I was avoiding that recommendation for years for some reason. But when I actually began, I understood that part of like learning from gods, like those which is a scribe god. When you are actually by your hand writing down things, the very geometry of letters, some like random stuff from your page is communicating to you in very, very special ways. So I recommend to draw tarot cards by yourself. That's very, very special and insightful process.
Absolutely. It's like the empty card space is like a cup that allows you to pour the contents of your mind into. And the symbolism is sort of brought out, but then it also has a way of going back in subconsciously. So it's this conversation that happens. So would you like to talk to us about what some of your favorite types of workings are when it comes to magic and practice in general?
My most favorite types of workings are, first of all, I think making art with, to me, it's like almost a ritual, because most of the times when I'm drawing some kind of spiritual being, be it a deity or angel or tarot card or anything, I'm usually preparing my canvas with some kind of sigil work, with some kind of magic squares, and I'm usually using planetary hours for choosing of timing. So for me, like basic layer of my artwork serves like a temple. I don't know. That's very similar to the scrying process, when you have your canvas as a magic mirror, and you are conjuring a spirit. You are inviting it to reveal itself through your work, and that's very interesting how your expectations can go in absolutely different direction than your hand is going. So that's probably my favorite part of the overall magic workings.
Okay. And it's interesting you mentioned how ritualistic it is, because I would imagine a lot of times you're in the same area, doing the same sort of ceremonious ritualistic things, like you're doing a lot of the same things just in a different way. So yeah, that's beautiful. I love art as an expression of magic. Nothing seems more true to me than that. The art and magic are the same. So do you have what's something that you don't like to do, perhaps? What are some of your least favorite things to do when it comes to magic?
I wouldn't say it is least favorite. It's like my most, not to say weak point, but the thing on which I know I should work more.
Okay.
It's basic discipline.
Hmm.
So I was raised like I had, not to say an excuse, but like artistic randomness, artistic mess when you are an artist and you don't need that kind of order, discipline, and schedule and all that
Hmm.
stuff. You are like
Hmm.
an inspirational person. And
Yeah, yeah.
when I got more seriously into magic, I understood that Saturn's part is important too.
Well,
So
absolutely. And it almost sounds like you're describing, in my perspective, a relationship between finding balance between Netzach and Hod. The
yeah, yeah,
passion versus
yeah,
the intellect. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So my least favorite part of magic is establishing consistent routines. That's what I call a Saturn magic, which is basically repetition.
Yeah. And it's funny because Saturn deals with death, and repetition is kind of like death to a lot of artists.
Yep, yep, yep.
So how has magic changed your life for the better? I mean, obviously you said it made you more balanced and it's given you a sense of purpose, but is there any other ways that you could explain to our listeners how magic has changed your life in a positive way?
I would say dramatically, because magic infused my life with meaning, and that's first and foremost like the core. It
Mhm,
helped me to find the thing which I sense as my true purpose,
mhm,
uh, and which is also very important part of magic and its influence on my life. It helped me a lot to deal with invasion of Russia into my land, because that's very, very, very stressful experience, and
I can't imagine.
things which I've learned in magic are helping very much, because like even with tarot cards, one of my favorite lessons is from the fortune card, which I can see as the only constant is change.
Mhm,
And we went through very stressful experience, and if you know what happened in different places, you could say that we were just chilling in basements. Like it wasn't so much stressful like many other experiences through which people of my land went, and many people died. Many people are dying just right now, and even today 5 people died just because Russian missile hit the living building. And like I can complain for the stress that I had, because there is so much more pain which is just right now happening on my land. But when war first started, we spent a few months in basement. It was like pretty much comfortable basement, you can say, because there was a toilet, there was heat, so we just had mattresses and pillows and all things on the floor, and we were hiding there. And I drew my tower card there, which depicts a Kremlin tower. And the tower is all about ruining to the ground, so that those huge constructs would which aren't serving well, so they could be demolished and something new and useful could be built there. So the very process of drawing that stuff helped me to go through that experience. And I had very stressful night when there were fights for the Bucha and Irpin. Bucha and Irpin are little cities which are near Kiev. I live in Kiev. And Earth was literally trembling all the night. And that was Thursday. And when you are hearing outside those explosions, you don't know which side is winning. You don't know what is happening. And you basically can't sleep. You can't find a place for yourself. And I drew, that was Thursday, and I decided that I would call to help to the thunder god, to the god of war, Perun. It's a Slavic deity. It's like Thor. It's like Zeus, but he has his cosmetic differences. Like he has an axe as his main weapon. So I've made a composite image which would depict a Perun made of lightning, and he was looking like a Kratos from God of War, because Kratos has an axe too, and because he is like main God of War on the planet in current timeline, you could say, like most popular. So it's like some kind of chaos magic approach when you are merging archetypes which are resonating a bit. So and I wrote a little poem. I don't know if I could recall it right now, but it sounded something like this. The earth is trembling all the night. I make my prayer to thunder god. Punish unjust with holy light. Perun, O Zeus, almighty Lord. You have 1,000 holy names. The lightning is your axe and spear. Protect my land, my people faiths, and make the enemy disappear.
That's beautiful, man. Words can't express my condolences for what you guys are going through right now.
So the next day, there were news that Russians are going back from that area. And there were several things like that with very powerful synchronicities, which helped me to go through this experience. And that's how magic made my life better.
That's what a wonderful way to handle such a tumultuous situation. Like I said, I can't even imagine what it must be like to go through something like that. And what you expressed about being closed off from the outside and hearing the explosions and not knowing who's winning, what side is. Man, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for this opportunity to share this, because that was very intense period when like all the West doesn't know what even is happening. No one knows, and everyone was thinking that that to 200,000 Russian soldiers on the border are just like how do you say it? Like the Putin was bluffing, like it was just showing off. But then the invasion begins, and all the West is just like, what is happening? We don't know. And I had an insight that I need to use magic squares. Like I didn't know the reason, but I needed to use magic squares. And I was looking what was the day. It was Sunday, and I drew a magic square of sun, and I basically like popped out from it an image of Horus, a god of sun. And I see my images like transactions with the invisible world. Like I am providing form to those ideas. So if people are looking at them, this idea is more manifested in this world than before. So when I'm drawing some of my images, sometimes I'm doing this with this some kind of request. And when I was drawing that Horus images, my request was like, mighty sun, please shine your light on the situation. Shine your light so that whole world can see what is happening right now. So reveal the truth. And on the next day, I saw an article which was posted on Russian news media. And
Wow.
that article was titled like, what should Russia do with Ukraine? And on the next day, that article was deleted because it was like a plan of fascist capturing of the other land, basically. It was very clear plan of the occupation. And it was, as far as I can remember, one of the important articles which were for the West and clear image of what's happening. And that this kind of synchronicities, I see that like navigation in the multiverse. Like there was a possibility to go to that universe where all was silent and Russia just captures Ukraine in a few days. But maybe that my interaction with Horus directed my personal experience closely to more free version of Ukraine. That's
It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
That's
so
very interesting how my position in the, like me being born to Ukraine and me discovering all those magic stuff, it's aligned perfectly for me, because one of the core ideas of Ukraine overall is the thing that it is called voля. Voля is the word which means both freedom and the will. It's in Ukrainian language there are two words for the freedom. It's like voля and svoboda. But the will and freedom are merged in that word vola. And it's very, you can say it's very thelemic in few ways, because even the flag of Ukraine, which is yellow and blue, it's like colors of the sun on the sky, and colors of pharaohs like golden and blue. And there are very interesting synchronicities, because Ukrainian trident is like stylized depiction of the falcon, which goes from the heavens to the earth. Yeah, and it fits perfectly those things which I am discovering in the magical materials with things which are surrounding me, because like there are so many correspondences. Like one of the most strongest parts of Ukraine is agricultural side, because we have the black soils, which are relatively rare in the world, and we have lots of them. And it's like black soil, Kemet, which is the
black
name
land
of the Egypts. Yeah, Black Earth. And
Black Earth,
and Osiris being a god of agriculture, and agriculture is very important in Ukraine. And there are many these little pieces which are combining into one very, you can say beautiful, but it's horrible too, image of today's Ukraine. So that's very complex thing.
And it's also very interesting because Ukraine isn't exactly, from what I understand, it's not the like most tropical and moist and warm environment. So for there to be black soil is almost, I don't want to call it a miracle, but I mean it's something interesting for sure.
Yep.
So you mentioned Horus and Parun. Are there any other entities that you in the past, you don't have to talk about current workings, obviously, but any entities in the past that you've worked with that you wouldn't mind sharing with us that were perhaps beneficial to you?
First of all, Her Majesty Promethea.
Of course.
Yeah. She is my psychopomp.
Okay.
And for those who don't think that a fictional character can be a god, she can, and she is.
I have an interesting take on that, I think. Here's the way I think about it. Back in the day, maybe let's think about like Marduk, for instance. There might have been 100,000 people that worshiped Marduk. How many people know who Gandalf is?
Yep.
Like billions. So if you think for 1 second that thought form or that egregore isn't potent and powerful and accessible, you need to reassess your perspective of magic.
Yeah. Because basically characters are just the vessels for the archetype. They are channels, not the force which is behind them. And Promethea, she's the goddess of imagination. She's embodiment of imagination as a force, as basically one of the most powerful tools, if not the most powerful tool we will ever possess, because everything which is surrounding me right now, first of all, was someone's thought. And
well said.
And Thoth also is among my most favorite deities to work with. Thoth, Hermes, Mercury. I also love very much Nobis, which is lion-headed serpent, which has very strange reputation among those who call themselves Gnostics. among different groups of Gnostics, because gnosis is basically the knowledge, and it's like more of characteristic of the very process of real divine inspiration. But nowadays there is like established association that if someone calls himself Gnostic, it's usually like Valentinians and very strict part of overall body of works which are considered to be Gnostic. So serpent with the head of a lion, Nobis, Demiurge, Yaldabaoth, and
Yaldabaoth, yeah.
Yeah, but all those names. He's very interesting figure, and when I first met him, it was like in some article about the false god which created material universe, and he's so evil. He captured brilliant white light into the dark and dirty matter and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, whatever, cute picture. But some time ago, I've discovered a little article which said that that very same deity was depicted on the favorite ring of Carl Gustav Jung. And I was like, okay, Mr. Jung, I don't think that person of that intellectual and spiritual scale would have his favorite ring with an image of some dumb and like ignorant god. It wasn't like Jung in any way for me personally. So I began to try to understand it. And first thing which I discovered was like a conjunction of Leo and Scorpio. Like Scorpio Scorpio has three icons. It's Scorpion, it's Snake, and Eagle or Phoenix. Because Scorpio is sign of transformation, and it's symbolized by those three figures which are like evolutionary scale. And lion serpent is like a conjunction of you could say the will to live and the will to die, because Leo represents all joys of life and basically will to live, and Scorpio is all about death and like the ultimate change. And I was like, okay, that's something that looks for me like something more close to the thing which could fascinate Carl Jung. But later on, I began to draw Nubis, and it was very, very interesting process, because my first drawing of Nubis were like I couldn't not to draw him. It was very random and very intense inspiration, like one night, and I have this picture. Some time goes, and the other night, and I have the second picture, and it was very intense and very, very pure inspiration. And I was like, okay, it's like calling me for something, for some interaction. I would like to understand it better. And one day I was meditating with my eyes closed and having like a sun bath. So everything before my eyes was in red. And I had this picture of the solar system, like sun is traveling through space and time, and it's circling around the center of the galaxy. And I saw the sun like the head of a lion.
Yes.
And his trail in space-time like the serpent's tail. And I was like, wow, that fits, because yes, from the pure potentiality where each of us was before being incarnated, from pure light of potentiality, the sun captured us into matter to invite us to live, to experience being, to be. And it fits perfectly even into that Gnostic perspective where this is evil God which captures us.
Mhm.
But that depends on how you view life overall as an experience, because no wonder that people who lived in desert saw sun like the source of the problems, you could say.
Mhm.
So these are, you could say, my favorite deities to work with.
Okay. I really resonate with Yaldabaoth as well, because when I first experienced it, I think I was reading like the Gnostic Gospel of Philip, maybe, or something, maybe the Nag Hammadi scriptures, but Yaldabaoth was described as one half fire and one half darkness. And I was like, man, that hits so close to home. And then you bring up the ring that Jung had. And to me, when I think Jung, I think shadow integration. I think
Yeah.
shadowcraft. And what is, I mean, one being that is fire and darkness as one. I mean, so I love that you shared that, because I never thought about the sun that way. I never thought about Yaldabaoth as being, everything that you just said resonates with me all the way to my bones. Because I had always just thought about it as like an integration of, light and darkness. And then you bring in the Leo and Scorpio aspect, and I mean, it's just, that's beautiful. What a beautiful
Yeah.
perspective to
Yeah.
have on that.
That's a beautiful symbol, and it's very bound to me to the headless right, and
Uh-huh.
to a book by Aleister Crowley, which is Liber LXV, Book of the Heart Geared with a Serpent.
Yes.
And that's very, very interesting work and deity.
Yeah, I always loved how LXV is sort of an anagram of Lux as
Yeah,
well. And it's
yeah,
like the book of light, but it's hidden to the uninitiated. I always loved Liber Astaroth as well, or Liber Astarte rather,
yeah.
because you could use that toward any. You could use it toward yourself. You could use it toward your partner. Like you could use it toward a deity. It's such a beautiful work of art.
I
What are
love
some? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I love how works of Mr. Crowley, if you are looking at them like to example to craft your own
Yes.
approach, it's so beautiful. And
Yeah.
I basically see all I don't know, all religions, all rituals, all body of work of magic as examples of someone getting to the core of existence
Mhm.
through his pathways. And you can examine that, but ultimately you will need to forge your own.
Hmm. Yeah, I trying to see everything as a template is one of my major practices. I'll
Yeah,
look at Hindu stuff, I'll look at Buddhist stuff, I'll look at Thelemic stuff, and like you said earlier, trying to extract that common truth from them so
yeah,
that you can use
yeah.
it for your own. Yeah. Hmm. That's a great segue into the next question, which is, what are some recommended practices that you might have for intermediate level practitioners?
First of all, if you have not begun to write your journal, start
Mm,
with that.
yes,
it
do it.
it can sound like least magical thing in whole magical practice, but I assure you, it's very potent and very powerful. It's when you I am writing my journal in very special way. I write each day on one page, no matter how much of the text I have, or like if that's more than one page, then it goes to the next page. But if that's one sentence, it's one sentence, and I'm going to the next page. And I am going to in this way to the end of the journal and beginning from the start, making a new layer. And when you are reading where you were at this very same page some time ago, when you were writing the first layer of that page, sometimes extreme synchronicities with current events are going on. It's very, very special and very beautiful thing. And I would like to also mention that work with imagination is one of the core principles of magic for me personally. Ritual stuff like learning, like when you are going through all the structure and all that thing, it's very important, but imagination is like you are ascending in the Kabbalah through first of all through the sphere of Yesod. It's all about imagination, dreams, and all that stuff. And I just like to stress how important imagination is.
Absolutely. You raise a good point about Yesod being related to the imagination. Yesod means foundation. So
Yep.
the foundation of magic might be the imagination in the astral plane. Just saying.
Yeah.
Awesome. What is the hardest part about being a practitioner in your mind? You mentioned consistency, but is there anything else?
One thing more on the imagination.
Oh, sure.
I love the quote by Alan Moore, if I remember that correctly, that the fact that it is imaginary doesn't mean that it isn't real.
Exactly. Well said. I love Alan Moore so much. I really do need to look into some more of his work. Early on, I think Constantine was the first experience I had with Alan Moore, and that just painted such a interesting light on magic.
You know that story how he met Constantine in real life?
No.
There was a story that one day he saw Constantine in a crowd, and sometime later Alan Moore was in the bar, as far as I can remember, and a young man which looked just like the Constantine approached him and said to him, "I will reveal to you the ultimate secret of magic. Any cunt can do it." And he just went away. So it's wonderful. It's just like you know that it proves the point about magic being the art, and how it is intertwined the world of fiction and the material world, because like the theme which I am raising in my Emperor card by drawing a crown of Emperor made from the fountain pen tips, like the symbol of the art, basically, for me. So it's like the real rulers of the world are those who are making dominant narratives, like who has more power, some president of some country, or I don't know, like George Martin or some other very influential writers of today. So I love very much how reality plays like a caduceus snakes with
Sure.
fiction.
Yeah. And you raise a beautiful point as well, because nobody knows who the fuck Pope Boniface is, but everybody knows Dante in the literary world. So like what you're
Yeah,
saying about
yeah,
creating a narrative is so true, I think.
yeah. I remember that funny meme where Dante is saying like, "Oh, your argument is very good and strong, but here I wrote the novel where you are pissed off in hell."
Yeah. And one has significantly more power than the other.
Yep, yep.
Would you like to discuss the importance of silence, or perhaps the inimportance? Some people think silence is overrated. Some people think it's crucial. Where do you stand on that?
I think that important thing is like a skill of solitude,
Mm,
a skill of being with oneself. Like if you want to practice magic, you definitely should uh, find peace with yourself and enjoying your own company. Uh, Silence can be very important and meaningful part of that, and I think that silence is very important part of the meditation, when you can sit and for the first time just observe your thoughts, because you to shut down the chatter is not so easy task. But silence can be very important tool in that practice.
I think so as well. One of my associates would say, which I agree with them. She said that silence can be performed in your actions as well, and
Yep,
I think that's very crucial to know
yep.
as well. Hmm.
Uh,
So
Nowadays, we Ukrainians have very different relationships with silence, because when world was silent about what's happening, it was sorry, that's just association roads which I'm traveling
mhm,
as a citizen of my land. That's
sure. No, I mean
uh,
it makes perfect sense that that it would have that effect. And just so you know, there were some of us that weren't being silent, and there were some of us that
I
were.
know we appreciated that this very much. Like without help of the whole world, and without help of the USA, and without help of Brittany, of Germany, and Poland, and many countries, I don't know where we would be in right now, because it's I see this conflict, this war, as a very archetypal event,
Yeah.
because Russia basically nowadays, unfortunately, is embodiment of the fear on this planet. It's like the whole country, from its president, is in a constant state of fear, and of this constant feeling of insecurity, of deep insecurity, which is, I believe, result of the some historic events, and many things which collided into that state. So I see Russia as basically very not in a good way Saturnian
Mhm.
country, like not in a way of discipline, tradition, and it's present there, but it's
Sure.
corrupted very much.
It's almost like the Cliff Off of the Sephiroth. I mean, there's the
Yeah,
the imbalanced aspects that can
yeah,
exist.
Yeah, and we as Ukrainians, we had very like good relationships with Russia, at least those which are of my generation, and we saw like an echo of Soviet Union, where there was that like the friendship of nations and all that stuff. And there was predominant narrative which was spread by Russia, and we have discovered that very, very huge resources were put there. The narrative about how Russia is that big brother which can take care of you, that you don't need no independence and all that stuff. And that's very, very painful separation process. Painful in many ways because the overall the invasion is like a betrayal. Is felt like betrayal because me personally and many of my friends had many friends in Russia, and to witness silence from their side was shocking. You couldn't, you don't have any words when you are seeing how the land of your friends is invading your land, how people are murdered, and how cynically Putin declared all of that things, because right before that invasion, I don't know, like month before, or maybe more, maybe less, no, it doesn't matter. Putin said to the overall Ukraine that phrase, which is basically, it translates like it or not, but how that, 1 second, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
When human goes through the pain or some not good event, to go through that process, how this word is. 1 second, I will find it. And
no problem.
Just lost the word. Tolerate. It says
tolerate.
Like it or not, but tolerate this, my pretty one. That's basically a quote from the song, which is very marginalized, and it's basically a rapist
philosophy or
yeah, and it was very cynical act, and it was very like to witness how your friends can be silent in that situation was just unbearable. I've lost some very important contacts because of that. It was like you can lost your faith in people in such situation. It was horrifying.
I think it's completely natural to lose, to lose faith in a situation like that. I can't imagine. So I'm sorry, was it Putin that said that? Like it or not, you must tolerate it, my pretty one?
Yep, I'll try to find some links to that, and yes, it was his saying. I don't know how that is possible even in the world. I was talking about Saturnian nature of Russia, and they have basically that ziggurat with Lenin on the Red Square, on the main location of whole country. They have that corpse of Lenin, which is just standing there like, I don't know, it's very, very death cult stuff. So something like that.
Man, yeah, it's amazing what can be allowed to go on, what can be allowed to transgress in the world and these days, just because the media chooses to cover this instead of that, and it always has something to do with this, you know. And it's so unfortunate that we have to learn from word of mouth and discourse one-on-one like this, what's going on in actuality.
Yes.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to say about that?
Fuck Russia. That's all
Hey,
I
fuck
can
Russia.
say
Yeah.
about
Hey,
that. That's very painful topic to me because like I don't know, it's more than a year and a half while you are one time you are hiding in basement, another time you are trying to go through the winter because Russia is bombing the electricity plants to basically leave people without electricity and warm. And right now Russia went out uh, from that thing with wheat. I don't remember how it's called in English. The Ukraine exported wheat in decent quantities to those countries which are suffering from the possible hunger. And wheat is one of the main export things of Ukraine because we have good agriculture. And Russia went off from the agreement on the corridors for that wheat. And Russia bombs now our wheat storages, and that's.
Is it like the silos, like the store the grain and stuff?
Yeah, great grain agreement. I believe that's.
Okay.
I can say I hear how Osiris is screaming right now on that topic, because like I had one day some kind of vision of Osiris being personally offended for that attack on the very nature of his area of domain. That's one of the things which helps me to go through this is converting to the archetypal images, all this stuff, because like you can see how reality is mythologizing through this process. I believe this partly of my so to say defense response of my psyche, and
Sure.
I'm converting that to mythological area to just to witness in this shit.
Yeah, to learn how to just understand it and how to process it, probably.
Yeah, because I think one of the also important topics on magic is the fact that after when war will end, after victory of Ukraine, we will have lots and lots and lots of people which will need tremendous help in psychological area. And I think that magic can be a very important part of this process, because if you look to, I don't know, Jungian psychology, it's
Mhm.
full of magic. It's basically consists of
Yeah.
magic, and
Mhm.
all that stuff like fortunes lesson of change is constant,
Mhm.
that kind of things. Those little parts of all that puzzle can help to heal all that trauma.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jung was very much an alchemist, and
Yeah,
I've seen what would you call it? Like a video essay or like a documentary, more or less, about how his father and his grandfather were allegedly Freemasons. So I believe that magic was a part of his life, whether he was a ceremonial magician or not. Jung was a mage, and from my
yeah,
perspective,
yeah.
absolutely.
That's different. Yeah.
So, in the field of magic, what are some things to avoid, maybe?
Oh, I am for all those years avoiding working with demons.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I That's not like a recommendation. That's more of just my perspective, because
Mhm.
when I was reading the introduction to the Goetia, there was that famous story of Mr. Crowley and Bennett, if I recall that
I think
right.
so, yeah.
That thing with you haven't messed with Goetia, Goetia was messing with you, or something like that,
Yeah, yeah.
where Crowley couldn't handle the Goetia. And I've read that, and I was like, okay, that's a very pretty clear sign to me that I need to have some experience, wisdom, and protection to go into matters like that. But I think that at some point I will need to visit those chthonic realms, just
Mhm.
in order to balance stuff, like to I think that one should master both heavens and hell.
Mhm.
And so if on terms of recommendation, I would say like be careful with what you are summoning.
Mhm.
You can mess with this stuff, and this stuff can mess with you. That's
Mhm.
if your magic practice is an experiment to find out is it real. Maybe better you should call to an angel, because if angels are not supposed, are not designed to harm one, there
Yeah.
are better material to experiment with.
Yeah,
So
angels aren't programmed with as much adversity. It
yeah,
seems
yeah,
like is
yeah,
one thing I will say is that the angelic spirits are what led me to work with demons, because I was communicating with Raziel, and I was led to the study of Jung. And one thing that Jung said was a tree's branches can only grow to heaven if its roots
yeah,
grow to hell. And
yeah,
then Dante said the path to paradise begins in the inferno.
yeah.
So I'm just like, well, here we go. Time to get into the underworld.
Only one reason why I hadn't quoted this, because I didn't remember how it sounds, but I had this on my mind too. Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
had a feeling I might have heard you thinking it.
yeah, yeah. And as for the Raziel, he was my personal link to the angelic magic, because I was avoiding it for quite some time, because I was raised in a family where grandma just brought me to the church, Catholic, and all else I did by myself. My most favorite character in my childhood was King Solomon. I was very fascinated with Christianity, but more with the Old Testament than
Mhm.
with the New, but I was like into that. And at some point, I began to ask questions on which priest hadn't the answers. And I was 15, I believe. And I was like, okay, that's some strange stuff, no answers here, and I was discovering some basic spirituality, like things about astral projection, reincarnation, and some parts of the history of Christianity about the theories that reincarnation was in Christianity, and it was cancelled on, I don't know, Niken's council or something like that.
I'm not sure.
And eventually I just left the church and put myself into some kind of opposition to the Christianity for some time. And like black metal music, all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And some time ago, I had my own story with how that, not so to say spirituality, but some spiritual people disappointed me enough to declare that I'm maybe agnostic, but closer to the atheism for some time. And then that existential crisis, and then Alan Moore, and and here I am back into the spirituality, but still very distancing from the angel and all this stuff. But I had the name Raziel from the Legacy of Kain Soul River video game.
Interesting. Wow, I forgot all about those.
Yeah, it was resonating with me on some very, very deep level. I had I've respected Raziel as a character without knowing him properly, like just had that little link to angelic world in form of that name. And I had my very intense magic session with my friend, and the image of Raziel began to emerge from my canvas. It was like a being which is standing on the earth. He had hoofs which were looking like fountain pen tips. And I don't know if you remember that illustration, but he's with gesture of Baphomet, like as above, so below, and he has no head, but he has a book floating around atop of his neck. And I was like, okay, that's very powerful vision which came through my art, and I would like to know more what is calling to me through my work. And I'm reading that Raziel means wisdom of God, and
or the mystery,
wisdom, or mystery, and wisdom was kind of my king since childhood. All my favorite characters were all about wisdom, like King Solomon, Teacher Splinter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Leonardo from Donatello from Turtles 2, and all that wise old man archetype. That was every time my favorite character.
Same, yeah. I never cared about the strongest one, or whatever. It was always about the wise old man, you know. And I love it. Go ahead.
Those solar warrior bastards can just chop heads of the dragons as much as they like. I want to hang out with this wise old Gandalf with his pipe. So when I've discovered that Raziel is the wisdom of God, I was like, okay.
It's on.
maybe angelic magic. I will investigate on that topic. And sometime later, I began to work with planetary angels and
Mhm.
Shem HaNeferesh angels. And these, I think, are very good starting point if you want to explore how magic works, because if you are using planetary hours, I think you can easily design the ritual which will work. They are hearing.
Yeah, I agree. I've got some experience with the Shem angels as well. I think of the Shem and the Goetia almost as of the relationship between the Sephirot and the Qliphoth. They're siblings. They're like sort of mirrors of each other.
Yep,
And
yep,
it's
yep.
interesting that you mentioned King Solomon and also an aversion to demons, because there's a story, I don't know if you know the story or not, but there's the story of King Solomon, who after he built his temple with the demons, he made a deal with Asmodeus. And Asmodeus said,
Yep.
well, I just need your seal. I just need your ring. And he gives it to him. And Asmodeus throws him like 5,000 miles into the desert and takes over his kingdom. And Solomon has to work his way back and eventually take his kingdom back from Asmodeus. So I could see how that might have subconsciously programmed you a little bit to be
Yep,
a
yep.
little wary of demons.
Yeah, that's very interesting how even the name of the Solomon is like a magic formula,
It
because
is.
Solomon, and
Yes.
also if you are writing it with the Hebrews, it's Shem,
Lamed.
Mem,
Mm.
Shem, Lamed, Mem, and hair, as far
Yeah.
as I can
Lama.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's two conjunction of two opposites in form of fire and water with Shin and Mem,
Yes.
and it's balanced with Libra, and it's
Aries.
with, yep.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. It's
Yeah,
very beautiful.
I love that you look at the words as formulas. Hebrew actually taught me to do that. As soon as I started
Yeah.
looking at words like Shemin, and I started looking just as soon as I learned that each letter was a word, I was like, I'm learning Hebrew. So I've been studying Hebrew for the last like year and a half or 2 years because it's the most beautiful language I've ever come across.
That's wonderful. I want one of my projects on which I'm working. It's taking Ukrainian alphabet and I want to make something like with Hebrew and the Greek alphabet to assign planetary correspondences and like to not to invent, but I think to reveal magic
Mhm.
components of Ukrainian alphabet, because I think it's always there, no matter which alphabet you are taking, there
Oh yeah.
is magic inside. So in Ukrainian alphabet, you have 32 or 33 letters,
Wow.
and this number by itself is begging just
It
to
is.
do something with it, because uh, I have very special relationships with 20 and with 12 and 21
Mhm.
numbers, because on December 21st, on the Great Conjunction, when on 2020 Saturn conjoined Jupiter, it was very, very intense night for me, and I consider it as
Yeah.
initiatory experience,
Mhm.
because I believe for the first time, saw an angel then, and I've experienced very, very important communication through my work with me, but I saw things which I hadn't put there in any conscious way. So 21 and 12 is very
Mhm.
important combination of the numbers to me. And basically 33 is 21 plus 12.
Mhm.
And 12 is 3 by 4. And
Uh-huh.
21 is 3 by 7. So it's like 4 elements and 7 planets
That's perfect.
in 3 modes. It's like Rajas, Tamas, Sattva, or salt, mercury, and sulfur, and merge with 4 elements and 7 planets. It's like, and that's just scratching the surface. And I want to draw sacred Ukrainian alphabet, so you could. I want to make it with beautiful images,
Sure.
which you can use as some kind of pattern. So you can write whole text, which will look like just a beautiful imaginary composition. But if one knows which image corresponds to which letter, one can read it.
Sure. I am very, very much looking forward to seeing that come to fruition. The moment you mentioned that there were 33 letters, I was like, that is too perfect. That is just, it's like you said, it's begging to be something to be done with it.
Yeah.
How much relationship does the Ukrainian alphabet have with the Futhark runes? Is there any correlation there at all?
No, I don't
No,
think
not at
so.
all. When you mentioned doing that, I got a glimpse of the Futhark in my imagination because they're sort of like the Hebrew alphabet as well, having meanings to each of the letters.
There is a problem with history of Ukraine and overall this region because while Christianity was fighting for the minds of people on these locations, very, very big body of historical artifacts were just destroyed. So we have basically no pre-Christian writing.
There's no
artifacts.
narrative. Yeah.
Like there are many theories about different writing systems, including runes on this area, but we have no artifacts for maybe they are destroyed, maybe they were now, but we just don't have the data for that.
Okay. Okay. I guess I was just wondering out of sheer curiosity. So, last question here. I can't believe that we're already through all this already. What is something that you would like to learn in the near future? Like maybe a new skill or maybe a new magical practice? What's something you're looking forward to learning and studying in the future?
I'm moving into more intuitive way of working with magic because I was like more from the hot Sephira, from mercurial perspective, like very structured. Like I need to, if I am about to draw a tarot deck, which are points of reference. There is Marcel, there is Rider-Waite, there is Thoth Tarot. Marcel is like more classical, Waite is like most popular, and Thoth Tarot is most complex, and it will fuck your brain out. And
it'll reconfigure your consciousness, yeah.
Yeah, and of course I am choosing the Thoth Tarot. So I am moving right now into more intuitive way of working with magic because I think that I've developed not to say enough, but I have some ground on the systematic approach. I want now to be more intuitive. So that's the first thing I would say. And I want to explore the power of sound, I think, in magic systems because I don't know nothing about the music theory. I don't know, like I can do sound with my voice, but I can't understand any technical details on that matter. So I think about practicing some Greek vowels to work with planetary
Mhm.
energies, and like to work in that field because uh, like to try some synesthesia, to try to do that things which I'm doing with my lines, and like how I approach my drawings, to try to do something similar with my voice.
Okay, that's a very interesting idea. I love the idea of combining different facets and to sort of condensing, the
Yes,
intention of the act.
that's the essence of magic for me. You are
Me
like
too.
situating your psyche with some idea on very different levels. You are using the smell, you are using the symbol, you are using the gesture. It's like over saturating yourself with some particular thing.
That's one of the things I love about Kabbalah is it makes that attunement so much easier because it's
Yeah,
a giant filing cabinet, basically, where you can
yes,
just put different systems into.
yes.
Mm,
Many thanks to Mr. Crowley and
mhm.
all giants on shoulders of which he stood, because
Yes.
that's I don't know uh, how big is the amount of data which was like don't know that word, uh, which was needed to even write the Liber 777. It's like tremendous work.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got it right here on my bookshelf. It's one of my go-tos as far as correspondences go.
Yes, yes.
Well, I won't take any more of your time. I very much appreciate you coming on and speaking with me. It's been a privilege, and your story is deeply touching, man. I once again thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was very pleasurable conversation.
Oh, no problem. Is there any of your like profiles or websites or any of your, what do you call it, portfolios that you'd like to sort of plug?
I will send links. I have my Instagram account, and I have my Patreon account. I am trying to make my art as much accessible as I can. So if one would like to see my artwork for free, that's on Instagram. And if someone would like to support my work and support my tarot deck, there is a Patreon.
Yeah, let's do that, guys. I'm seriously, his work is amazing. If you get a chance to check it out, I've actually got something. If you have the time, I'm going to send you something that I'd like to commission you to do whenever you find the time to do so. So, yeah, thanks again. Have a great rest of the week and stay safe, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.